Okay, so today I'm going to show you how to make a pillow from a tote sack or tote bag. I had actually started making this before I realized that I wanted to record everything and do a how-to or a DIY for this. So I just want to let you know that I had actually bought this at Target, and it had a little drawstring top. It was just supposed to be like a cute little sack. I think I paid $3 for it. But I trimmed the top of it off and got rid of the actual drawstring. And normally that would have probably been all I would do, but the saying on the bag was actually a little bit higher up since it was actually a tote, and so I decided to trim the bottom off a little bit as well, just so that my wish you a Merry Little Christmas will be in the middle of the pillow when I get done. So I technically ended up having to sew both the top and the bottom of the pillow. It's your preference. If you get something like this, you certainly don't have to do that. I did not use a sewing machine, one, because I've not ever used one before, but two, I just sometimes find it peaceful just to sit and do some hand sewing. It's very light. So after you get the top or bottom of your bag cut off, you'll want to turn it inside out so that you can, I'm cutting a little bit more off there. I realized it was not quite as far down as I wanted it to be. But after you get it cut off, you'll turn your bag inside out. And then you'll want to sew a straight stitch across the bag. I usually put my stitches a little bit close together. But you'll sew across the bag. If you're sewing two ends, I would just go ahead and sew one end completely up, and that would be what I did for the top. Right now, you'll see I've already actually sewed the top of this, so I'm only doing the bottom now. I'm going to sew across the seam on the bottom, and then I'm going to leave about 4 or 5 inches just so that I can have some room to put the stuffing into the pillow. And you'll want to start your stitch probably about half an inch to an inch below the top, so that when you fold it back right side out, that you've got a good enough material where your seam's not going to pop out or come unraveled. And right here I'm just sewing, showing you how I'm doing that. Nothing major, just going in one side and back out the other, and then going back in again and out. It took me probably about 20 minutes to sew one side. So the whole project in itself is maybe a 45 minute project. Not too long, and it ended up being a cute little pillow that I spent maybe $5 for after you count the stuffing. I do apologize for the recording on this. I was actually sitting in my recliner and the camera was fairly close to me. I didn't have a good setup, but like I said, I really had not planned on doing a recording of this until after I had already started. And this was my first day out of the hospital, so I really wasn't prepared to set everything up. Of course, this is not a very hard DIY, so I figured that what I had set up would work okay. And like I said before, if you are someone that uses a sewing machine, you could zip right through this project and probably have it done in less than 10 or 15 minutes. Okay, now that I have sewed and left probably about 5 inches of space, and I did not tie this off. You could certainly do that. I just kind of left my thread dangling, and actually I've got my needle in my mouth, so you'll see it stretched apart. But I'm just turning the fabric right side out so that I can stuff it. That's why you want to leave about 5 inches of space, because if you sew too far in, it's just going to make it a lot harder for you to turn your project right side out. And even with the 5 inches that I had, I still kind of had to work the material a little bit to get it to pull through. And just be gentle with it when you do it. Don't get into a hurry, because you can rip open your seam that you just sewed. So just take your time. If before you start it you realize that you've sewed a little bit too far in, I would just clip it and take a few of the stitches out and tie it off, and then just you can turn your fabric out after that way. And now that I've got it right side out, I'm going to make sure that I got all my corners and everything pulled out like it needs to be. And then I'm going to grab my bag of stuffing. I have that on my lap, and it's just a polyfill. You can get this at Walmart. I'm not sure how much that bag costs, probably $3 or $4. It's very inexpensive. You don't really have to use a lot of it. You just get one bag, and I just put mine in the closet, and then I can just save it for other projects that I want to do. Okay, now that I have my project ready to fill, I'm just going to take my stuffing and open up the bottom of it. This is a new bag that I had purchased. So they actually have a little stick inside of it, and it looks kind of like a chopstick, and it's supposed to help you to push your stuffing into your projects, especially if you have like little tiny areas that you need to go in. The pillows really aren't that bad. Sometimes I use it, sometimes I don't. You'll see me feeling around in the bag for it, but I do end up pulling that out a little bit later. And I just pull out handfuls of the stuffing, and I just take them and just kind of like break them apart with my hands. It's probably not something that's needed. You could probably just take handfuls and stick it in there. But I do and put it, pull it apart before I stick it in there. And I'll just reach in there and just push it in. And then once I get so far, I try and fill the furthest up first. And I just kind of fill it and back it my way out into the opening of my project. And, as you do it, depends on how soft or how firm you want your pillows to how much stuffing you use. But you definitely want enough in there that it's going to make your pillow look like a pillow, and that, as you use it, your stuffing don't slide to one side, or, one corner ends up being flat. So you might just want to shake it around and push it in there and just play with it a little bit before you decide to actually close up your project. And when I get to the end, I do put a little bit more toward the end, just because I think that if you feel like, oh, I need to leave space because I've got to sew this, then you're going to end up having a little bit less stuffing in that area. So I always put a little bit more and just kind of push it in a little bit, because once you get your space closed up or sewed back up, you will be able to fluff your pillow. It's not that hard to do. And also, there is a stitch that you can do that is the same as the one that you did when your project was inside out. But when you sew it right side out, you can still do the stitching that when you close it, it actually is the same stitch. I don't really know how to explain it. People who sew should know what I'm talking about. But every time I do one of these, I always forget how to do it. And so I actually started sewing a different type of stitch when I was closing it up, thinking, well, it's not going to be that big of a deal. That's why I put it on the bottom of the pillow. But then after I had gotten about 2 inches sewed, I remembered how to do it, and so I finished the pillow off that way. So there is about a 2-inch space on the bottom where I was sewing it back up that, isn't that pretty, but it's not horrible. Like I said, I purposely made sure that I did this on the bottom so that if I did have any errors or anything, or closing it up wasn't perfect, it's definitely not noticeable. And even if it is, it's not that bad. So I didn't open up my stitches and go back and redo it. I didn't feel like it was worth it. But anyway, even if I would have continued on with the other stitch, I still felt like it would have been okay. So if you can't figure that out, I wouldn't worry too terribly about it. I did use a cream color thread that I had for some other project that I had done at Halloween. So it matched my pillow perfectly, and the color of thread you choose also will help to hide any errors or mistakes that you have when you sew as well. A red thread, a green thread would have been pretty, but it probably would have showed more, you know, like I said, the error that I made on my pillow. And as you can see, I'm now done stuffing the pillow, and I'm going to start sewing. I think I did a few stitches toward the camera and then realized that that wasn't going to work. I wasn't going to be able to see very well to get that done. And like I said at the time, I really wasn't sure how to go about doing the inside stitches from the outside. So I ended up flipping the pillow out and putting it on my lap so that I could see better. And from this angle, I just continued to sew until I got the closure completely sewed up. And you want to go all the way to the end, and you probably want to put 2 or 3 stitches in the very last part. And then I just tied a knot off and cut my thread, and that was it. Now you see me fluffing the pillow and trying to move the stuffing around to the corner that I just finished up, and just making sure that I get everything filled and right. And I like my pillows a little bit soft, but I don't want them so soft that, you know, they're just flat. So, and I will show you, if you look, I'll show you the error that I made. I'm kind of pointing to it or rubbing my finger over it, but like I said, once you turn it up, you don't really see it, and that is the finished project. It turned out really cute. This is like the second pillow that I've made where I've purchased things from Target $3 section, little tote bags and things like that, that I was able to convert into a pillow. So just a cheap, you know, inexpensive DIY that you can do. And, you know, like I said, it's just a relaxing project, and I thought it turned out cute. If you decide to do this, let me know how yours turned out. Thanks for watching. Bye.